It's time for Show Me the Franchise
with Thomas and Frederick. With Thomas and Frederick.
It's time for Show Me the Franchise
With Thomas and Frederick. With Thomas and Frederick.
Welcome to Show Me the Franchise, the podcast that talks about franchises of all shapes, sizes, backgrounds, genres, and types. I'm one of your hosts, Tom Stadler, here as usual with the Sorcerer Supreme, Mr. Fred Dakin.
Blah! That's my sorcerer noise.
Why is he just like a monster?
He's coming out of he's jumping out of a card.
I suppose he would be. Oh, like a holographic
Yeah,
card,
I'm like
perhaps.
a holograph. You move me around, I move. And I'm shiny.
Oh, I mean, you are shining every day and shiny every day.
Ooh.
But I don't know if it's like you got like waxing yourself up or I don't know what you're
I always wax myself before I come here.
I like to imagine that's quite the experience. Fred, we are talking about a very interesting topic today. We're getting back to tabletop games, but not your typical tabletop game, would you say?
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Oh,
Do you believe in magic?
Is it a young girl's heart, young boy's heart? I mean,
It's not in a young boy's fart.
oh, not young boy's fart, but you know what? There could be magic in that little boy's fart. You never know.
In a young boy's cards.
See, now that's a great twist on the lyrics. We are talking about the card game Magic the Gathering. And Fred, we have an awesome guest here today. Joining us is a comedian in the Milwaukee scene here, Mr. Jesse Skewes. Welcome to the show, Jesse.
Oh, well, thank you guys for having me. I'm pumped to be talking about Magic the Gathering, and believe it or not, young boys' farts have a lot to do with my memories of that game. So, thanks.
Does sound good. Not the farts, the memories.
Yes, I was going to say, I'm kind of curious to dig into the young boys' farts, why that's relevant, but
Just your basic pizza and Mountain Dew, 7th graders throwing some cards, you know?
classic
That happened.
school fare.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
So Jesse, you had talked to us a little bit about Magic the Gathering, and I gotta tell you, I glommed onto this because I've always heard about Magic the Gathering. It's been something that's been like in the zeitgeist of like life and for terms of like games and everything. I've like known people who've like competed, but I want to know more. And I was like, okay, we got to talk about, especially because Fred and I feel like we've been talking a little bit about card battlers, like virtual card battlers,
Definitely.
like Marvel Snap. So to talk about the OG, I mean, what brought you to Magic the Gathering to begin with?
that is a very long, like, detailed answer, but the short answer would be I was born in Racine. And when I was 11, our family moved to Burlington, Wisconsin, which is a bit more rural. And it was right in middle school, right in 7th grade. And I was having a tough time kind of like fitting in. But I had like one friend, and I had a sleepover at his house one night. We were playing the Nintendo 64 as you do back then. And his older brother and some of his friends were over. They're at this table and they're playing Magic. And it was like this mystifying thing. I'm like, what's going on over there? And it's just like, look at the shiny. And like, I kind of like started peeking over the shoulders and just like saw the artwork, saw like how much fun they were having. And it was like, oh, this seems like something I want to do. Yeah.
Reminds me of like the opening scene or like one of the early scenes in E.T. where they're playing Dungeons and Dragons like around the table.
Oh, for sure. There's a lot of that like nostalgic comparison to the like 80s and 90s, like just gamer culture.
Yeah.
Kind of like back then it was literally much more like nerd orientated, kind of shunned upon, kind of like the outcast thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd say like now it's really gravitated much more, for lack of a better term, mainstream.
Yeah.
A lot more accepted.
For sure. I mean, it's everywhere now. I think I wouldn't say everybody would know Magic the Gathering, but I feel like it's a topic that a lot of people would recognize now, right?
Yeah, and there's just so many people just playing these kind of card games in general now. There's, different stores that people go to that I'm hearing about all the time. A lot of people in the improv community are playing, not necessarily Magic, but just these kind of card games. And it is always interesting to me. Always seems like a struggle to get into it, but I'm always interested in it.
Yeah. So then how did you end up getting in? Did you just start asking questions?
Pretty much like that. That's me in my whole life. That's how I got into improv. That's how I got into everything. I'm just like, look at the shiny. I want to find out everything about this. So I like just started hounding my buddy's older brother, like, where do you get the cards, all this stuff, and kind of cut to late middle school. I'm making my money baling hay at a sheep farm, and that money's going right back into like the Burlington local game store, just buying packs, like just ripping them open. I just like was infatuated with the game, even though I knew very little about the tactics and the actual complexity of the game at the time. It was like just a good gateway. You know, the artwork, just and the fact that a few of our friends would just play. We weren't building legal decks or anything.
Yeah.
Like, here's a cool card. Boom, boom. My guy beats your guy. Just like very, you know, very middle schooly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Had you been into like Pokemon at all, or like Pokemon trading card game?
I can't say that I am. I'm a bit of like a purist with the TCGs, but I think that's also an age thing.
Sure.
Is like by the time Pokemon hit, like I was already like in high school, like late high school, and so it was just like that was kind of a little kid's game. And
Yeah.
like I'm not going to demean that franchise. I just don't have a connection to it.
Sure.
Yeah, so it was always Magic,
Yeah.
or Cribbage and Euchre and all these other card games, of course. Yeah,
We should have done the cribbage episode.
yeah.
See, now those are the card games I was raised on. But no, I was just asking if that was at all like in your like stratosphere before you even came across Magic, because, and I'm not trying to like put an age data to date you here at all, but I'm just like, because that was like the first time I came across a card game was Pokemon, and I was like, oh, like you can play a card game with them? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
But then not realizing years later, oh, they were riffing on Magic the Gathering. Like,
Yeah, riffing or just like taking it to a different, like I wouldn't say more simplistic place, but like the play style is, and you can age me, that's fine, because I believe that's really important when it comes to like a franchise. Is like, so what was it, like 1996 is when I moved to Burlington. I was 11 or 12. I'm 40.
okay.
So like maybe just that much of an age gap, if you guys are in your 30s or whatever, is enough for like the Pokemon thing just never hit me.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm 37, so it's
Oh,
not
okay.
far off. But
Okay.
I mean, 3 years can make a difference. That's the
Yeah.
difference between being like, I don't know, a Nickelodeon kid and a Disney kid. And
Yeah.
I think Fred and I are even on that level of like, you were like Disney animated shows, right?
Well, I have to say it. I grew up in a small town. I didn't have cable, so I didn't even know there was Disney TV shows. I had my crate of VHSs,
Yeah.
but I didn't even know there was a world of Goof Troop and all these other things.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just how it goes though, right? And it's like, yeah, and if there's something like that misses you, like Pokemon the trading card game, like, yeah, you're like, okay, that's kid stuff. Like, I'm about the real game.
Yeah, kind of. And that, like, we can probably touch on that later. There's definitely like types of Magic players, like, you know, the hardcores and the sweaty types and the casuals and stuff. But to just like kind of sum it up, also like the funds and time sunk into Magic, it's like I don't even have time to try this Pokemon thing,
Right.
Mhm.
So
Well, I mean, it sounds like I've only ever heard about a lot of this, so I'm very curious. But like, my understanding is if you want to be like a real serious like Magic the Gathering tournament player, you need to have a lot of liquid cash like available.
how deep do you want to get into that? Because like throughout time, that's fluctuated. Like back in the day when people would do tournament style, which is like 60 card classic, you can have one card in your deck, so you can have up to 4 copies of the same card.
Sure.
People would have to go on the tour and go on the circuit. And earlier on, it probably wasn't as cost or time as intensive because the cards weren't worth as much yet. It hadn't
Right.
caught on. But then, like you said, there came a place, and where they're at now is like if you want to be doing the tournaments and doing that, you're playing like meta decks, meaning like there's 5 or 6 decks that exist that you're going to play in these tournaments, and you're going to have to buy those cards and sink that money in. And especially in a format like standard, which rotates all the time. You're going to have to like, 3 months later, all of a sudden my deck's not legal anymore. And if I want to keep this grind going, I'm going to have to put, hundreds, possibly thousands of dollars more in for the next couple months. So I never was like one of those tournament players. Like I said, I'm still like in my head, I'm still in middle school, like right now, just starting that up.
Which sounds like a much more healthy relationship with Magic than some people might be.
Yeah, I've had times like we can go through my like timeline at some point. Like there's been times where it can definitely bring out the binge buyer, like almost gambling type aspect when it comes to opening packs.
Well, now
You
for the
know.
time, I would say, like, right? I mean, let's hear about it. What was your timeline then with Magic? Kind of fill us in a little bit.
All right, let's go like I said, in middle school,
Yeah.
I found out about it, and I had like, by this time, like I was coming up in the world. I went from like one friend to like four friends,
Mm.
and we all played Magic. And there was a local game store there that we'd just take our money and go buy packs and make decks.
Mhm.
So like essentially as early on as 11 or 12, I was taking my hard-earned money and just like throwing it into Magic cards.
Yeah.
Then about halfway through high school, kind of reality sets in,
Yeah.
and all of us kind of like put that on the back burner. I tried out sports. I thought that was something that America wanted me to do, that my dad wanted me to do. So, one of those things. But a lot of us were still in the Boy Scouts. So like during camping outings and stuff, we'd still bust out the Magic cards as opposed to something like Pogs or Pokemon.
Yeah.
It was Magic. Then after high school, I joined the military, like straight up, just graduated 2 months later. I'm in boot camp, and no Magic for 8 years. None. Wow. Like I was too busy doing other things, that's a different podcast.
Yeah.
Get out of the military, and I decide to stay in San Diego and like live there. And I start going to college, and then like one of the first things I did was like find a local game store and like get back into Magic.
Yeah.
And then I went pretty hard for that, like playing like Friday night Magic. That's a big thing, still is. Like you can go and like draft or play whatever the local game store has for a tournament going. So like local tournament wise, I've always been into that. That's not as cost intensive either. And I did that for a few years, and then I graduated college, moved home back here to Wisconsin a few years later. Kind of had a lull, and then walked into Lake Geneva games where I was working down at the time, and kind of that's takes me from like, that's 2016 to now. Current time frame is like, that's been my Magic last 10 years. At the risk of going too hyper tangential, like that's the best summary there. Like I've come into adulthood with Magic where I've very much minimized my collection, and it's very minimal now because I'm like out of the opening packs game, out of the like just the grind of having to go to like Friday night Magic and things, and I'm much more of just like maybe once or twice a year get my buddies together and play.
Yeah. I mean, that's still cool though. I mean, the fact that you're still playing today after it seemed like it was such a big part of your life, like. I mean, and then you're not losing it, like you said, you had that 8-year stretch where you didn't play it at all. So it's like, it's cool that you've kind of found like, okay, it's going to be still a part of my life, even if it's not the everyday obsession.
Yeah, that's the short answer. Like, there's a thing called a cube that you can build, which is like anywhere from 360 to like 1,000 cards, and you put that together, and you can essentially draft that with like 8 to 16 people.
Yeah,
and so it's kind of a fresh experience every time. So I kind of condensed my collection to a cube, which I found out about because of my good friend Alex down in Lake Geneva, who has like an awesomely just like signed card, all the foils. His cube is just like top of the line, and we played at conventions. And so it's like kind of like it becomes this like biannual thing. Is kind of where we're at now, as opposed to just like every week sinking your time into it.
Yeah. Are we talking like a literal cube though that you kind of keep these in, like a binder?
Yeah. Instead of a binder, you can actually buy like it's a cube that kind of unfolds and it's got compartments in it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to maybe see a picture of that later.
Yeah. Look up you can just look up like an MTG cube, but you can also just have them like in rubber bands, depending on like, how gritty you are.
For sure. I did want to ask you, because you mentioned you're in San Diego and you mentioned you played Friday Night Magic. So one of the first times, I mean, it wasn't the first time I can recall, but I remember I went to Comic-Con one year in San Diego in like 2013. And I kept seeing flyers and banners for like a big Magic the Gathering tournament there. And apparently it's a big deal. Was that something you were familiar with or participated in?
Not at the Comic-Con one. Because as one does, like in San Diego, I never went to Comic-Con, and now I'm like kicking myself. That was like the last time to get in before it's just so overcrowded now.
So hard.
But at the time it was like, oh great, Comic-Con's in town. I just want to go surf, bro. But that idea that Magic the Gathering is pretty much at any like nerd adjacent convention very much holds true to this day. Like GaryCon, which is a Dungeons and Dragons convention down in Lake Geneva, they got Magic there. Gen Con, the biggest like gaming convention in the world, held in Indianapolis. It's every kind of game out there, but they have an entire like hall section just dedicated to Magic the Gathering.
Wow.
And Pokemon too. Now.
Yeah.
So, but it's always been there in that way, shape, or form. In fact, as far as the history, it's kind of the one that started it all.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, man, I was like, "Gee, I feel like we got to segue in. I did want to give the floor to Fred if you have any experience with Magic the Gathering before we do start talking history.
I don't really. I was a Pokemon kid. Yu-Gi-Oh was big for a bit.
There we go.
Everyone knows.
But I think I got into it because other people around me were into it. I don't know if it was necessarily something I would have found on my own,
Mm-hmm.
but I had a decent sized binder of Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards at one point. And honestly, I would get packs here and there, but I would just kind of look at them, flip through my binder, look at them, draw them was a big thing I like to do. Would like try my hand at drawing them.
That's cool.
But when I think about Magic and just the art that I have seen, I am surprised that I never gravitated towards it because aesthetically, I think I much prefer the artwork and maybe even the world of Magic over like Pokemon,
Yeah.
which is a little silly, but I like it.
Yeah.
Definitely feels more geared towards children. Not that, hey, everyone still loves Pokemon that loves Pokemon. But whenever I see a Magic card, I think what gives it the edge is there's almost like a spookiness to some of the cards. There is a darkness, kind of almost like gives me the vibes of like that, like the heavy metal movie and stuff like that. That I can get into, like wizards, but there's also like an electric guitar solo going on. And I don't know if that's true to Magic, but that's the vibe I get when I look through, like when I was looking at the cards.
Yeah, you're pretty dead on there, especially the earlier Magic cards. And art is one of the main reasons I still love Magic to this day. But a lot of the parallels there, like a lot of the early D&D art, like that 80s style like D&D art, a lot of those same artists did Magic cards early on. So it kind of had that dark fantasy, like 80s feel to it, 80s and 90s feel. So you're like dead on with that description.
Yep. Dark fantasy. That's the term that I would go with just because like I never got involved with, like War of the Rings, whatever, but I never really dove into that world, got into it, which is surprising because it seems very much like my shit.
Yeah. I mean, well, and it's kind of like, it makes me think of Led Zeppelin, I think, because they reference Lord of the Rings so much, and it is like the origin of like heavy metal in a way, right? Like it's just they like turned it up a notch, and then Black Sabbath turned it up a notch, and just kept going and going. But like you almost can't associate like heavy metal without like that dark fantasy art, and like that's 100% what Magic art is. I always think of that. You're right. It's like, look at these wizards are like, like sparks coming out of their my hands and shit.
Tom did a great wizard hand.
Yeah, it was really good.
But I'm not the sorcerer supreme. You are.
No.
We definitely should put a pin in artwork though and make sure we talk about that because I think it is cool, and I do want to learn more about like how some of the artists came to be. And you've obviously met a couple. You were showing us your collection before we.
Yeah, showing you some of my signed cards and stuff. Like that's its own section right there. Like to a couple artists I've met is an understatement. So
yeah. Well, let's dive into the history and let's start talking a little bit about this. So I'm just going to provide some very light history because I honestly didn't know how far to go with this. But so just to catch up on anybody, if you're somehow listening to this episode, don't know. So Magic the Gathering is a collectible card game. It's essentially a tabletop game, but if you have familiarity with like Pokemon, the trading card game, I think is probably the most universal, or Yu-Gi-Oh! Honestly, I do think that's a big one too. Like that's sort of the style of gaming, right? That we're talking about. It's like sitting down at a tabletop, playing cards, playing against a competitor. It was created by Richard Garfield. So released originally in 1993. So the story kind of goes that before settling down in Oregon, Richard Garfield's father was an architect and had taken his family to Bangladesh and Nepal during his work projects. Garfield did not speak any of the native languages, but was able to make friends with the local youth through playing cards or marbles, kind of like you were talking about in 7th grade here. Once back in the U.S., he had heard of Dungeons and Dragons, but neither his local game store nor his friends had a copy. So he developed his own version of what he thought the game would be based on the descriptions he had read, which he considered closer to the board game Clue. but with players moving from room to room fighting monsters with a fixed end goal. It's the idea. When he finally got a copy of Dungeons and Dragons, he was surprised at how more open-ended the game was, but it was dreadfully written, and that's his words. Shots fired. Because and I was actually going to ask that, was Dungeons and Dragons, am I right about this? It was developed in like Kenosha, right?
Lake Geneva.
Lake Geneva, yeah.
Yes. And the other writer and co-founder is from Minnesota, but like Lake Geneva is the home of Gary Gygax, developed down there. That's what Gary Con every year down there is about, celebrating his life.
Yeah.
It's a huge like gamer culture down in that city.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to hear about the whole like poorly written thing, because that's kind of not the vibe or history I got. But hey, you're reading, and I'll
Now listen, this is
Yeah.
coming from a very official source, Wikipedia. So, I mean, they have it in air quotes. It's obviously kind of like has like references, but does he seem to have a lot more affection from what you know of Dungeons and Dragons?
Richard Garfield.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be able to speak intelligently about it.
Yeah.
But my little history tidbit is at Gen Con one year, Peter Atkinson, who used to run and own Wizards of the Coast back in the day, his father was super into magic, and he just would tell about all the stories. And Richard Garfield apparently would play D&D with some of these guys. And it was slowly developed as a way to like pass time between the games, or maybe for Richard's case, he wanted to like up the game a little bit, like, hey guys, you want to try this?
Yeah.
But that's kind of my only little thing that I know from like, heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend. type
Sure.
thing, you know?
Which, I mean, that's a pretty good source.
Yeah, it is. It's the local source.
Somebody who knew him, right? Yeah. I mean, or at least knew him who knew him. But yeah, it's interesting because I guess still he was inspired by the open-endedness of Dungeons and Dragons, is how we would put it, and created a game he called Five Magics, which is based on the 5 elemental magics that were drawn from geographically diverse areas. So while this remained the core concept of 5 Magics, Garfield continued to refine the game while he was growing up, often drastically changing the base type of the game, though he never planned to publish it at all. Then he came into 1991, where he was a doctoral candidate at the University of Pennsylvania and had been brought on as an adjunct professor at Whitman College. During his candidacy, he developed ideas and had play tested a game called Robo Rally, which was a board game based on moving robots through a factory filled with hazards. Kind of sounds fun.
Yeah.
So Garfield had been seeking publishers, though, for that title, and his colleague, Mike Davis, suggested a newly formed company called Wizards of the Coast, which was established by Peter Atkinson, who was a systems analyst for Boeing at the time in Seattle. So he went to meet with Atkinson and was impressed by Robo Rally, but considered that it had too many logistics and would be too risky for him to publish. So he told Garfield and Davis that he liked the idea, but that he was looking for a more portable game that could be played during downtime at conventions. He was inspired to Garfield then was inspired to take his 5 Magics concept and applied it to a collectible color-themed cards so that each player could make a customizable deck, something that each player could consider part of their identity. He met again with Atkinson back in Seattle, and when Atkinson heard that idea, he recognized the potential that this game could be something big and could be expanded on, in contrast to most typical tabletop games at the time. And the quote was that it could make millions of dollars. And
I think they did.
it has. So I did look it up today. Oh, I'm sorry. Magic the Gathering has generated a estimated $1.08 billion in revenue in 2023, with $1.065 billion in gross sales for 2022 is the latest report that they have. So it's pretty successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned, Jesse, there is a lot of different styles and types, and I kind of figured this is our launching point rather than go through some official document. Let's talk a little bit about what are the different varieties. Like, what's your standard variety, Magic the Gathering?
So as far as like ways to play.
Sure.
So like just coming off the history there in the core concept, it was invented as a 1v1 game.
Right.
So you would have 60 cards in a deck. And essentially each person starts at 20 life, and you're just trying to get their life down to 0 before you go down to 0.
Sure.
The intricacies that go between that might be a little too hard to explain. Like it's going to take an hour to like, I'm not here to teach magic. So that's the basic core concept that's how it was for a long time. But as people do, you get kind of creative and it's like, well, let's build our own like homebrew decks and try different things. So eventually, and what's very popular today, like a format called EDH, Elder Dragon Highlander, came around, and that's 100 card format, 100 cards in your deck, but it's singleton, so you can only have one copy of every card, as opposed to 60, where you can have 4 copies. So like 60 card decks are a little bit more tuned in. You're like, these are the cards I'm playing, I'm going to beat you this way. Whereas the 100 card deck is a little more creative. So those are your 2 like main forms to play. And then we get to the third way of playing, which is my favorite way. And the way a lot of people still like kind of can be part of Magic without having to have a collection or spend all this money on decks, which is limited, which is either drafting cards or getting sealed product and building a deck just from those packs and then playing each other, or a cube, as I mentioned before, where it's a limited environment. Like, these are the cards we're dealing with, and you essentially draft, which is another element of gaming that I love so much. So you're sitting there with like 10 cards in your hand, you pick one and you pass the pack, and eventually you build your deck that way, drafting against other people. So it's really fun. So those are your like kind of like 3 basic ways to play. The 60 card way is what still is known as like standard play or pioneer formats, which is just the legality of the cards. Like Pioneer is a certain, like I think it's 2016 to present day you can play cards in Pioneer, but in Standard it's only like the last year worth of printed cards. But T2 style 60 card is what the pros do. They're playing 1v1 with their 60 card decks, trying to get the other person's life down to 0.
Okay. And in that case, it's kind of any cards go, like they can bring whatever they have.
Yeah, essentially, if it's because there's banned lists, like there's cards that are banned because they print them and they're like, oh, wow, this is so powerful. It broke the format, so you can't play this in a tournament. And then you cut to your local game store where everyone's like, I only play banned cards because, I'm so cool. So, yeah, that's kind of how I don't know what else to say about that other than like that's how like Magic can continue to generate revenue and things like that. And even digitally, I don't know if you've heard of Magic the Gathering Arena.
Yes.
So you play that online, and all those formats are available there, as well as like Arena's own special format, which is only digital Magic cards, so they don't exist in an actual tangible product. And they're like super broken, but you can play like with Arena's like own format. So there's just so many ways to play Magic these days, and so many different cards and so many different like combinations you can have, that it's like a paradise for for a super nerd in a way.
Yeah. Have you played any Arena?
I have Arena, and I play it fairly regularly.
Okay.
Only because there's a way, like you can earn coins and in-game gems by doing like objectives and winning drafts.
Sure.
So I like to stick it to the man and just bide my time, do all my like objectives and stuff, and then build up my in-game currency and enter a draft, as opposed to like people just like they can pay $20 and get the coins, like any microtransaction game in EA. But like want to talk about the state of gaming these days, like Arena definitely has that element to it where you can just buy what you want.
Yep.
But that exists in real life Magic too. You just go buy what you want. If you got the money, you're going to get the good cards.
Right. Which I think that's what makes drafting strategy interesting to me. Because I had a previous guest on our podcast, Peter Intile, remember, from Wayne's World.
Oh yeah.
Was also very big into Magic. He was a big collector though. Basically sold off his whole collection to pay for like student loans and stuff.
I got a story on that too about selling cards we can get to later.
But no, I mean, he was just telling me though that he's recently been more intrigued because he used to play competitively at tournaments, and he's like a big proponent of like drafting, because I guess it just levels the playing field, right? It's like anybody can play.
Completely, literally levels the playing field, because especially if it's a Friday night Magic draft where it's a sealed pack of cards, you open that up and there you go. You gotta. I mean, how you get the advantage on someone is by doing your research, like what cards exist, what am I trying to go for? And there's draft theory, which is super intriguing too. Like most of the time I try to build off a curve. I don't get distracted by like the shiny rare because it might not do something in a limited environment. I'm trying to make sure I can play cards turns 1 through 4. So you have your 1 drops and your 2 drops. So like a mana curve is a very essential part of like building a deck.
Yeah.
That some people get lost in because it's like, they're like, oh, I want all these awesome bombs and these cool looking cards, but they're all very like quote unquote mana intensive or expensive to get out onto the battlefield. So they just sit there for like 7 turns, like getting attacked until they can get their cool card out. But yes, drafting levels the playing field very much so.
That's good. Yeah, I'm like trying to equate this to like Marvel Snap, like thinking about it right now.
I was thinking about Hearthstone a lot
Oh.
because that was a game I used to play, but then it became the problem of people sinking so much money into it that you couldn't. It was a free game, but you really couldn't pick it up and play anymore like it could in the original days.
Was Hearthstone an original or is that an adapted property?
That's I think Dungeons. No, it's World of Warcraft.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's kind of like, is it Gwent in The Witcher?
Gwent.
Like,
Yeah.
it's very similar to that.
You're a big Gwent guy?
I was when I played Witcher. I would spend hours just playing Gwent. Yeah. But Hearthstone, Fred, has been described as like magic without blocking. So it's like mechanically, it's very similar, especially the attacking and the way that power and toughness work. It's a derivative of magic in that way. It's got lots of elements, but not all. So
Yeah, I loved playing it, but then it just kind of was pointless after a while because I was not going. I would have bought the game, but then again, get into the microtransactions of it all. Like, I just didn't want to spend money in that way.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough environment, and I think because Marvel Snap is my biggest like allegory right now for this, and just knowing that like they have like collections available, like get a bundle for $100, you get all these like in-game currency, and you get a card, and you get like tokens that you can spend to buy more cards, and just like it's like okay, great, yeah, well, you're gonna dump $1,000 into this game just to be competitive for things you could just earn over time, like,
and so many people will. And that's its own topic, is like the problematic of like gaming in general, especially electronic gaming. It's just all those microtransactions, and a lot of game developers have stopped putting passion into things and stopped trying to make it better than it could be, because they're like, there's people that are just going to spend $1,000.
yeah, like why incentivize the free game aspect? That's a way to get people in. I think the way I read it online, it was a line that I liked was like, and it's probably true of like Arena too. It's like free to join, pay to stay, or something. Or
yeah, depending on how much patience you have.
Yeah, exactly.
And to kind of like bring this into something relevant to Magic, and something that I did want to make a point of bringing up with when this kind of like microtransaction and like having to buy these cards to keep up with the competition goes, is very much local game stores. And I worked at the one in Lake Geneva for years. They stay afloat because of the Magic they sell, and the products they sell. Like Magic usually accounts for like 60 to 70% of their sales, the rest being like board games and D&D stuff. And so it's like very good for the local game store. So like you take that theory and translate it to a local business, it's nice, but online, that's money that could be going to local game stores.
Yeah.
And same with like when you buy like single cards from a local game store, that's a card that is no longer, you're spending that money and you're paying the store. You're not paying Hasbro, which now owns Wizards of the Coast.
Sure.
So it's like there still comes a way to spend your money and like support the community without getting just too overboard into all that like microtransaction and I'm going to spend thousands to win.
Yeah. So did you ever sell any cards or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like throughout that timeline I gave you throughout my life, like Magic has kind of been like, in a weird way, like my savings account. I don't claim to be a responsible human being in that way. Like I kind of have that California hippie thing going, and it's very true in some parts, but like Magic cards paid for like my truck, the down payment on my truck. Magic cards paid for almost my entire improv education thus far. So it's like when I got into improv, it's like, well, I need to pay $300 for this class, sell some cards. So in a weird way, it's been currency. I know people down in Lake Geneva who have paid for their house, like no exaggeration, and some are down payment on, because back in 93, 94, these guys had all the old cards, like tons of them. Just, they were nothing back then. Cut 26 years later or whatnot. And literally there's cards worth thousands, there's cards worth hundreds, and they'd have play sets. There's people who have collections well over $100,000 worth. You know,
So crazy.
it gets crazier. I don't know if you know Post Malone.
Yeah.
Maybe not personally, but he spends.
No, he's been on the pod.
Yeah, I mean, you should get him in here instead of me. But yeah, he like bought a Black Lotus a couple of years ago. It was in the news because Black Lotuses are like can be up to 10 grand or a couple, depending on the version. So there is very expensive cards that exist out there.
Yeah. That's actually something I did want to ask you about too, because you mentioned there's so many different types of cards, and we would go crazy, I think, trying to talk about every different type of cards. But
Absolutely.
what are like some of like the most notable ones? So you just mentioned Black Lotus, and like what's kind of the story with each of these cards? Like why are they so rare, or why are they so important to the game?
Yeah, when it comes to cards like Black Lotus, or what they refer to as the Power 9, which is like all the Moxen and some of the early cards, not only are they powerful just because of what they do for like your card advantage. For example, a Black Lotus, and we could probably cover it later, it costs nothing to play out into the battlefield. It's a 0-cost card.
Oh, wow.
And you sacrifice it, and it gives you 3 free mana. So essentially, you're just getting 3 mana for the turn, and that can go off into combos, et cetera, et cetera. But what really makes them expensive is, as of now, they have a thing called the reserve list, which is older cards that they're not reprinting. Magic and Hasbro, they reprint a lot of cards, like we're gonna redo a Liliana the Veil or some of these things, and every time they reprint a card with alternate artwork, the base value will go down because now it's more available and it's less rare. But some of these cards, your dual lands and your Power 9 and stuff, they're on a reserve list, which is still upheld. Like there's debates on whether or not Hasbro will ever back down on it. But as of right now, it's stated like we will never reprint these cards. So just like art or anything that's around, it's like there's X amount available in the world, and that's it.
Wow.
So that's kind of what makes them so expensive.
Interesting. That's pretty crazy though. And I feel like, so it is like you mentioned, like there's like a 0-cost card. What's the highest cost card that you can put out?
Oh, I'm trying to think. That's one of those things. There's Magic nerds out there are gonna be like, oh, he doesn't know this. But like, there's cards that are like 10 mana, 11 mana, 12 mana. Like there's these. There's a plane, which we can get into the planes of Magic. It's essentially how it's. Every time you see a new set, it exists in kind of a different universe, if you will.
Oh,
and
interesting.
So there's this whole thing of Eldrazi, which are kind of like these machine-like artifact type creatures, and they're known for being like just super giant, powerful creatures. And a lot of those cost like 15 mana or something.
Oh, wow.
But in the game, there's ways to like cheat cards out of your hand or from your graveyard where you don't have to pay the cost. And now we're getting into the mechanics. But
yeah,
those are like, I'd say the most expensive as far as Magic in-game goes to pass is like Eldrazi, but a lot of they're not like tangibly expensive. You can find them for like $20 or something, you know.
Got it. So in terms of like expansions then, so we're talking like expansion sets, so that's like different universe set like creatures and or like I don't know, entities.
Yeah, so like if we want to get into Magic lore quick, which is not one of my I got buddies that are like super into the lore. Like I know my key players and stuff, but the non-game part of it, essentially, it's there's a story behind Magic from the get-go.
Okay.
But even early on, and maybe you talked about how Richard Garfield traveled all these different places. Like Arabian Nights was an early set of Magic that kind of took place, and the whole theme was like, you know, dudes fighting on camels and like stuff like that. So when they go to a different plane, it's kind of like it's its own world contained. So that set comes out, and if you're in, we'll talk about Ravnica later, it's like it was this big city. The whole plane was just like a city everywhere. So there wasn't like a lot of forests and stuff. So like everything around the city was orientated to like guilds and all the stories there. And then you leave that and you go somewhere into like to a swamp land, you know, like Phyrexia, which is like this desolate artifact place. And every time a new set comes out, essentially, you can be in a completely different world with its own canon, its own atmosphere, its own kind of rules. Which kind of brings into a very. Have you guys heard of a planeswalker?
No.
So it's a type of Magic card that came about like maybe 2010. Like once again, Magic nerds don't get mad at me, but their whole thing is like they're the ones that can transport themselves like from plane to plane, kind of like they like, you know, like they're doing Marvel timeline stuff or whatnot.
Sure.
I'm going to go over here and fight in this war. But there's a lot of lore and a lot of history with the planeswalkers and some of the legendary creatures that appear in different when you visit different planes. So essentially, a plane is like a universe,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Interesting. So they had, like you mentioned, it's sort of like a, I keep wanting to say like Arabian Nights, but
Well, that was the name of the set. Yeah.
yeah. But like, so it's
Or
like
the
you could
dark-
have,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's something that's like set almost like Arabian inspired, but there would be like maybe something that is a little closer to like Lord of the Rings, like Middle Earth or something like that, right?
Absolutely.
Mm.
In fact, all this is true.
Oh.
Like it's like the possibilities are limitless, and they've covered throughout the years, like all that. Now, a lot of your planes are rooted in that kind of Lord of the Rings, Game of like fantasy-esque thing is kind of always been the base of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how else to put it. They've gone some crazy places, and
Yeah.
especially modern day. They've really upped the game as far as like the places they're visiting and the planes they're kind of creating. But they'll also like revisit these things,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So, and maybe I'll touch on that more when we talk about like my top 3 favorite sets or something.
Yeah.
Later on, because that will that is relation to the planes and some of the canon.
Because yeah, I've been seeing, or I've been getting ads for like this Final Fantasy expansion, and so is that its own plane then?
Yes. So, are we going to dive into this? Like,
I mean, you don't have to go
Planes
deep. I
being-
was just curious.
Oh no, as you should be, because like if you're a big Final Fantasy guy, from what I know, this is going to be its own set.
Oh wow.
So they are essentially visiting the world of Final Fantasy,
Mm.
and they're gonna all the heroes and the players and the landmarks and the canon from Final Fantasy they will be bringing in to life through the card game
Right.
with the mechanics of Magic the Gathering, and they've done this a lot of times in the past before. And once again, ignorance speaking, I'm not sure if Final Fantasy, I believe it's going to be its own set, which means it's going to have like commander decks and boxes and packs you can buy.
Okay.
But they also do this with secret layers,
Mm.
which is like sometimes just 5 or 6 cards that get printed with alternate artwork.
Mhm.
And like a different skin, if you will. Like there's a Deadpool secret layer, so you can go
Uh-huh.
get like Deadpool cards. There's a Walking Dead secret layer. There's a Stranger Things secret layer.
Mm.
Jurassic Park. If you look up Universes Beyond, you'll see they've covered a lot of IPs. So it looks like Final Fantasy is next on their list.
Got it. Okay. Because yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Final Fantasy guy. Just growing up, like that was my fantasy universe type thing. I mean, this pre Lord of the Rings coming out though, because I know Fred, you're like Lord of the Rings.
It's fine. You do you, my guy. I'm just excited that there might be like a Goofy card or a Donald card, because I mean that's technically Final Fantasy, right?
Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, it's all the same world apparently.
Just all gonna be part of it.
Now you're getting into Disney's Lorcana.
Oh, so
It's kind
here we
of
go.
like it's not Magic, but it's a tradable card game. Came out a couple years ago, and it's TCG, all Disney.
Oh,
So maybe you should check that.
that
out.
sounds good.
I've heard that's a big deal, Lorcana, but
Yeah, it's I don't know too much about it, other than I hear it's got legs, and I mean they're dealing with a pretty dope IP there, so they got a lot
Yeah.
to work with.
it is kind of crazy just how much I feel like Magic has inspired all these different things to almost try their own hand at it, right? Like any trading card game feels like it is doing its own spin on Magic the Gathering to one event or another, whether it's like partnership with Magic or it's like, yeah, Lorcana, or you have what we were just talking about, Pokemon, a trading card game, like all these different
Mhm.
things. But I guess one thing I am curious about, and I still want to kind of talk a little bit about some of the mechanics and stuff, but why do you think Magic has persisted as like, besides being the original, like why is this still kind of like the king of trading card games?
I think being the original has a lot to do with it,
Mm-hmm.
because they kind of got to set the tone. But to me, and I don't know those other games as in depth, Magic is very complex. It can be as simple as you want it to be. Like you can learn the game in middle school, but the complexity only grows from there as far as how deep it like combos and all these different things you can do. Because I learned Magic so early on in life, it's led to me being very good at tabletop board games, like
Mhm.
actual traditional board games, card games like poker and euchre, things like this. I think the answer to that is because Magic just is the game of games. Once you know it and break it down, there's so many different mechanics and so many different ways to go that it has that staying power. And you combine that with all these different planes and the artwork and just the places they can go. And like you said, you have some people that just collect and some people that are in it for the artwork and some people that do just the game portion of it. So it's got you on all fronts, whereas some of those other games are a little more singular, you know?
Oh, it's definitely very cool. I don't know what else are we missing here, Fred.
Trying to think if I've played any other similar thing to this. Because like I said, the Pokemon, I never really played Pokemon. Yu-Gi-Oh! I played, and it, from what I recall, sounds pretty similar to this. I am fascinated that you said that you feel you might have better skills, or you're at least adapting to broader games like playing poker. Do you have like a good example of how that crosses over?
Yeah, it'll be like strap in everybody. This is exciting conversation, but just as far as like in poker, sometimes you have to bluff, right? That's never more prevalent in Magic because there's spells you can play that you can cast on other people's turn to like disrupt this thing. So anytime you like pass your turn and you have untapped mana, that's kind of like the mechanics. If your lands are untapped, that means you could potentially play a card from your hand.
Yeah.
So as far as that bluffing and the percentages and knowing what's going on with the other person's hand and their tendencies and things like that, that's some huge parallels to poker right there, you know. Because essentially it's like, oh man, do I want to play this spell? Maybe this guy's got a kill spell. Maybe he doesn't. I don't have any other creatures to play if he doesn't. It just becomes this whole chain of events. Like, if I do this, then what happens? So in a weird way, it helps. Like, it's got that improv style thinking too. Like, if this is true, what else is true in this situation? Yeah.
And in a way that actually makes me think, and I love the way you said it, like it feels like the game of games because there are so many layers to it. And I think, I mean, and now that I've been playing more card battlers, I've become just more of a student of like what this is all about and like really appreciating, all that complexity. You made me think about Clue, the board game. And I know that came up when he was talking about his inspiration. I was like, you are kind of like, I think as you grow, you do get more complex about how you ask those questions of like, I think it was Mr. Green or something like that, right? Or like, and then it's like, you know, and somebody can prove you wrong. And they're like, and sometimes you are playing like a card because like you already know you're guessing something that you know is not the answer because you're trying to throw off everybody else, right? But like it made me think so much about like, wow, what a weird way to kind of spawn this into like, how do I Dungeons and Dragons affect like that mentality of like a poker type thing and to make that into something? And I think that's just fascinating because it really is just like there's so many different angles you can come at it. And I think one of the things I would want to ask you too is like you mentioned there's different types of decks, different like archetypes and stuff. Like, what are some of the different ways you can approach like playing? Like, the way I think about, and I'll try and use something that might be similar because, like, again, Marvel Snap is my most relatable thing. But like, you have like a discard deck, which is like you intentionally are discarding with the intention of bringing cards back, or you might try and like destroy like your own card or something like that in order to resurrect it, like even stronger than it was. Are there things like that in Magic?
Yeah, that's where it all comes from, Tom.
Yeah.
Like literally, like discard is a big mechanic, if you will, in Magic.
Okay.
To the effect of this is where it's like, how far down the rabbit hole do we go? Because there is like, I'm discarding this card to bring it back from my discard pile later to play, or I'm discarding this card to make another card more powerful. I think the best way to attack this would be just to kind of go through the 5 mana symbols.
Yeah.
And kind of when the game started, what they were supposed to archetype into.
Yeah.
Now, the game has evolved to the point where it's like certain sets will come out and they twist it. It's like, so if red's known for playing a lot of spells and stuff, like sometimes they'll be like, oh, red's gonna do what black's gonna do. So essentially, let's start with white and the planes. Those are, it's a very like creature heavy thing. And enchantments, which as opposed to creatures, enchantments, like you cast the card, it stays on the board. It's kind of like a status effect. It'll give all your creatures like a +1, or it'll say like opponent's creatures come in tapped. So creatures and enchantments is kind of like White's way, like kind of like your classic, I'm a knight and I'm going to go fight this person, is kind of like White Magic is supposed to be associated with like the good, you know. So alone, that's kind of what white does. Then you get black, which is also very creature heavy, but you start to deal more with like they like to discard stuff into your what's called your graveyard, your discard pile, because they're black magic. They're a little darker. They also have a lot of kill spells, like you talked about killing your own creatures, which you can do, but also your opponent's creatures. Black is very much known for like, oh, I kill your knight, I kill your knight, you know, and that's kind of what black does. Blue is your classic like control. What they're doing is they're trying to counter all your spells essentially. Like I'm going to cast this and blue just says no. Like you can't cast that. You can't do this. And then they're also known for card draw. So like that's card advantage. That's like a basic game mechanic. Green is very much known for like accelerating your mana. So we talked about your mana, which is like how you pay for all your cards in your deck, how you get them out on the battlefield. So green's known for like accelerating that. They'll have creatures that come out and they can tap like lands. So instead of playing on turn 2, you can play something worth 2 mana. You cast a creature that can add mana. Now on turn 3, you can play something worth 4 mana. And then last but not least, red is very much like this. They're known for being, I want to kill you as quick as possible. Like I'm going to cast a shock spell that does 2 damage, and all their creatures have what's called like haste, so they can attack right away. So that's kind of like the colors and what they basically do. But then you get into like combining colors and things like that. So the 3 main archetypes, without getting into the weeds after this, would be aggro, which is you're trying to kill your opponent as quick as possible with creatures and spells. Mid-range, so you're going to have a balance of like powerful creatures and control spells to kind of like, you want to win the game in the mid-range. So it's like a balance of creatures and spells. And then you have straight up control, which is like, I'm just trying to make sure my opponent can't cast or do anything. I love control, but some people, like sometimes when you're playing it, it's not always fun because it's like, this guy just won't let me play.
This is the most frustrating archetype to play against.
So, and I believe those archetypes carry over to a lot of these games.
Yes.
So
100%.
but once again, I think Magic kind of started that all.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, it's the Rosetta Stone for most alternative card games. Yeah. Cause I'm like, you're talking about control. I'm like, oh God, my head wants to split open. I love the idea of doing that to other people, but I don't like that either. Like it's such a, have it both ways. But man, that's very cool. I think it's nice to kind of understand, I think, some of the mechanics and stuff. And like you have like more support cards and
Yes, I mean, you have creature cards, you have enchantment cards, you have artifact cards. Artifacts are kind of like enchantments. You play them down, but they can be creatures. This is where it gets kind of convoluted. You have instants, which are spells you can play at any time on your turn or other people's turns. You have sorceries, which are also spells that have some sort of effect, but you can only play them on your turn. You have like mana ramp cards, like stuff that goes and fetches you mana from your deck, you know, a forest or a mountain or a plains, something like that. And that's just kind of like scratching the surface, because then you have like subtypes. So if you have a creature, he could be a cat warrior. You know, it's like some anthropomorphic cat.
Fred's eyes white.
Yeah, there you go, dude. Cats with swords, man.
I'm always the cat in Skyrim.
There you go, dude. You would love like white's known for like kitty decks, as you call them. You got like big buff cats and sometimes just little kitties, and you're fighting that way.
I like it.
Like I said, I could talk for 7 hours about all this, you know. But when it comes down to it, those are the kind of the basic ways to play and the card types there are.
Yeah.
And then you take that with building your own decks and from scratch, and that's where the game gets super fun.
Yeah, which I think that's the appeal, I think, to me, at least personally, is like when I am thinking about Magic, I'm thinking about a lot of these games. What are the different ways you can mix and match so that you can kind of like, because you mentioned that whole like poker aspect, I think really stuck out to me. And I'm glad you've asked about that, Fred, because I'm like, how do you bluff the people? Because that's what I love. Is like, you know, someone expects you to play a certain way, and then you throw down something, they're like, well, what the fuck? Like, like, whoa, what is this person playing, this one or this one? It's like, and you're just like, and you're trying to gain that competitive advantage by just throwing your opponent off. And that's what I love about playing like even card games like cribbage and stuff too, of like, why did they throw me a 3? Hey, they can use that.
Probably doing what's best for their hands.
Yeah. It's like, might be going for a flush.
And I'm sure, you know, what separates a good Magic player from a great Magic player? Timing. I think when I've been playing a lot of Balatro which is a very simplified poker game. But it's like pretty much you have like 6 or 7 cards out at a time, and you're trying to just play poker hands, and you can do discards, get new cards, but it's all limited and there's different rules. It's kind of like I can make this move or this move. This one might be the long play, but it's a little more controlled versus a short move, which is going to be a little more risky, but it's putting a lot of points on the board.
Yeah, you just described aggro and control right there. See, yeah, it is very much like that. Like you said, that timing is huge. A lot of times, if you're trying to control the game, your life, you have 20 life. That's a resource. Like people will be attacking you, and you'll be down to like 3 life, and they think, "Oh man, I got this guy." But meanwhile, they got like no more cards in their hand, because they expended all the resources. And then you just kind of like, there's a card out there called board wipes. So like, there's a card that just says like destroy all creatures. So someone's been attacking you with all these creatures, and all of a sudden you just destroy them. They have no hand. They're only drawing 1 card a turn, and then you just like take over the game.
Man,
You know, so that's like a very big timing thing, especially in like draft. It's a big deal. I noticed when I would lose a lot in draft, it's because I was so anxious to like get the life down to the, like, I want to just attack this person. And if I had 3 creatures in my hand, I'd play them out 1, 2, 3, and then someone would like board wipe or kill them all, and I'd be stuck. So it's like, I'm perfectly content attacking with this 1 creature and just dealing minor damage, and because they might be holding spells that, like, if I put these other creatures on the board, they're just going to get rid of them. So it is very much like this give and take, and this mental, like, if I play this, he plays this. So that very much exists.
interesting. I mean, I'm kind of wondering if maybe we should get into some theoreticals then. Talk about Show Me the Franchise. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's time for that. Yeah.
So, Show Me the Franchise segment for everyone's knowledge, but obviously for you, specifically Jesse, this is kind of our coulda, woulda, shoulda, things that you wish that the franchise could have done, or maybe things they still could do, should have done, still maybe should do in the future. If you had anything specific that you would want to see out of Magic, or have wanted to see out of Magic, what is like number 1 for you?
Okay, this is the worst question you could possibly ask me, because my brain is just in a million different places.
Yeah.
I think the best way to state it, because we just covered like all these IPs that they are gaining access to. So like they've done a good job of like saying, we're going to make a Lord of the Rings set. We're making a Final Fantasy set.
Yeah.
Which 10 years ago, that was something that I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if there was like a Game of Thrones set? So I guess we could start with
season
like,
8.
there's Game of Thrones seasons 1 through 6.5, like the first couple episodes of 7. But just theme wise, I guess they're like, so there's 3 things I'd like to see them do, because I think it'd be fun, and the nerd in me, I think they could have fun with these IPs.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones is number 1.
Sure.
Why they haven't done it yet just mystifies me. Maybe because it's too on the nose to like, but like you got so many characters and creatures that already exist. You have a plane of existence right there. So I think it's just a matter of time before they do that. Personally, I would love it if they did Rick and Morty. Because I'm a huge Rick and Morty fan, and once again, that's right on theme with what Magic does. Like Rick's literally going around all these different universes. He's a planeswalker. Rick is a planeswalker. So I think it'd be fun if they did that one. And then like the deep nerd in me, I showed you the card earlier that I had customized to look like Caprica 6, is like, I love Battlestar Galactica. So I'd love if they did that. And I would throw Star Wars in there, of course, but I think it's just a matter of time before Star Wars stuff happens.
No, but you're speaking to a special class of people.
Yeah, Battlestar is
Battlestar. We've done a Battlestar episode.
Oh, nice. I'll have to go back and listen to that one.
Yeah. Definitely. Those are great picks. The Rick and Morty one really gives me something to think about.
I've got one.
Oh,
Kind of a world that doesn't get explored too often, but kind of has a deep roster of like villains and ghoulies, is the Turtles.
the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Yeah, I'm not talking about the 70s band. I'm talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I just think like when you see some of those designs of those like creature villains, they give me kind of Magic vibes. And I always love kind of weird twists on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles art. And hey, think about a pizza card.
Yeah, there's literally a mechanic in the game that's called a food token. You can sacrifice it to gain life. So like, boom, you already got your pizza right there.
I love it.
That's perfect. Ninja Turtles is kind of a fun idea, though. Actually, I love that.
And for all, I don't know if they have a secret layer out there on it already. Who knows? Because I'm not that well researched, but that's another one I wouldn't be surprised if they end up doing, whether it's a full set or just like 5 or 6 cards. And you mentioned the artwork, which is something, as long as we're doing the woulda, coulda, shouldas.
Yeah.
I really want, the secret layer came about like 5 or 6 years ago, and all these supplementary sets happened. And sometimes the idea is cool, but the art doesn't always hit. And it's like, oh man, like there's a Jurassic Park one out there. You can look up the cards, and like, I'm just going to be honest, the artwork's kind of like meh. Instead of like this gnarly, almost magic T-Rex, like it's like 1993 style, like dark fantasy art. It's just like this kind of like CGI computer. It might even be, I don't want to speak the words in, but like, who knows what's going on with some of those secret layers.
Right.
But then some of them is super dope artwork. So it's just kind of like a coin flip. So yeah, all this would be hinged on like they do it right, which is kind of like on the shoulda, coulda, woulda. Like, I believe right now where Magic's at, since Hasbro has taken over, they are mass producing products like out. They are just pushing it, product down your throat, like product fatigue. And they are sacrificing some of the artwork at times and some of the letting that settle in. Like, they're going to make this Final Fantasy one, and then I'm guessing months later they'll have a new one.
Sure.
So there's like no time to kind of let that like settle in. That old school gamer in me is like, let me enjoy this a little bit. So that's kind of like this franchise. I kind of wish they come and start slowing down a little bit with what they're doing.
Yeah. Have they done a Star Wars one? I would have to imagine. They have not?
They haven't done a Star Wars one yet, but that might be doing like getting the IP from Disney, but they've done Marvel stuff. And it might just be one of those that it's like there's a Star Wars TCG out there somewhere too.
I believe
there was one back in the 90s. So it's like it might just be a matter of time.
I am finding what looks like it might be a Ninja Turtles one, but I don't know if this is real or not. It looks like made up, but
here, let me see.
I was gonna say, Jesse, we need to be.
I don't know why I'm looking at it.
But like,
no. So what you're on is a site that there's lots of sites like this. Back in the day, like you can go on and like make your own Magic card.
Oh, so that's
kind of like a Photoshop thing. Like I want Leonardo, so I'm going to make him this.
Yeah.
So yeah. That is like a fan based thing. Like you could go on there and create your own cards if you wanted.
Well, hell yeah.
Yeah. And print them out, but they won't be tournament legal and all this other stuff, which is a whole nother bag of worms. But yeah, the Turtles would be awesome. Like my buddy John down in Lake Geneva, name dropping. You guys don't know John.
Yeah.
But he's one of those guys. He's like, I don't know, within a decade, they'll have all the IPs. Will be covered. He's just like the way they're going now. It's like there won't be anything left on Sky. And they've done Doctor Who, you know.
Oh man.
So like they're getting there.
Big in the zeitgeist right now. Big episode. I don't know if anybody's caught up, but we won't spoil anything.
Okay, don't want to tangent too much into that.
Yeah, that was surprising ending. We'll just leave it at that.
I am peeking at the notes, and part of this section, I think we should talk about adapting as part of a coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? What would you like to see? Is it a show? Is it a movie? What is it?
The best way to say this is like, I would love to see a show or a movie. And I just know in my heart of hearts, it won't be what I would like it to be. Like a lot of things, they're going to adapt it, but who knows? I'm still holding out hope. There is a show in the works apparently, and I'm not too well researched on it. So I don't know which way it's going to go. And I want to say there was like an animated thing like back in the day. I'm not sure though. I would love to see like a show or a movie, but done in a serious tone and done for, I'm just going to say adults. Like Magic was created in 1993 and there's a lot of like hardcore Magic fans that are just grown men. We're just, and women, you know, just like, we're grown-ups and they already have enough out there, like especially since Hasbro took over, getting the younger generation into gaming and things like that. There's already enough of that. So I would love to see like a seriously set movie or a TV show done in the style of like an HBO Max production, you know, or like a movie directed by Denny, you know, something like that. But
Yeah.
you know, I don't think that would ever happen. But in my world, that's what I'd want, you know. And then you can fan cast all your like magic heroes, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
It's because what I was gonna bring up is the Dungeons and Dragons movie, the most recent one, Honor Among Thieves, which feels like, but again, that's done with more of like a playful taste. It's a lot more comedic, but still fun.
Yeah, that movie I liked. Like
Mhm.
me and my buddies and like his kids, we went to see it, and it was like kind of that perfect. Like I was happy with it. I'm like, oh, this was a fun movie. My expectations are gonna be like, oh, how's this gonna go?
Yeah.
But like they adapted it in a good way. I would like to see magic not be done with kids in mind, which is just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Because anytime they redo a Star Wars franchise and things like that, or Dungeon, they have the younger generation in mind. And
It
I
has to be
understand that.
four quadrant.
But it's kind of like I want that rated R stuff, you know,
Mm.
just
Yeah.
like with some of that subject matter and grittiness and production value too, because that's how, like you just described, you've mentioned Led Zeppelin and heavy metal and this like kind of like nostalgic, like late '80s, early '90s, like kind of counterculture vibe. It's like I'd love to have that in mind,
Mhm.
but. So if we're dreamcasting, that's what I'd love to see. You know,
Yeah.
like serious actors, good high-end directors doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different, but I think kind of in the same vein, something that could, you know, give a little credence or make it a better chance of having something like that is having Alex Garland doing Elden Ring. I feel just looking at the artwork, I see a lot of similarities between Elden Ring and Magic, and maybe that doing well and being kind of a serious take could, you know, open up the door a little bit to like you saying, like a dark fantasy magic film or TV series.
Yeah. Just no like forced campiness, forced humor.
Yeah. Or like Guillermo del Toro potentially
Mhm.
taking on him. He's got
I
an
like
interesting
that.
looking Frankenstein trailer right now, which I'm kind of interested in. So I can confirm it sounds like the Russo brothers were developing. I know, and I'm like, they're like, hold on.
Brett's
hold on.
face right now.
Okay, hang on. Let me read it before we're done. June 9th, 2019, it was reported that the Russo brothers were going to executive produce a series for Netflix. They were gonna do an all new storyline and expand on the stories of the Planeswalkers. That said, it fell quickly into development hell. And as of September 2024, Netflix announced that the series production would be starting anew with a new showrunner, Terry Matalas, who was doing the 12 Monkeys show on Sci-Fi
That is the show that
That's a
happened.
deep cut.
and was doing the showrunner for the second and third seasons of Star Trek Picard, which was the TNG reunion season, third season. And I had fun with that.
So translate that for me. I'm not as big of a film and movie like buff as you guys. Is that like good thing or at least middle of the road?
I didn't watch the 12 Monkeys
Me either.
show, but it ran for a couple seasons.
I watched
it.
that one. Yeah.
Was it good?
In its own way, very good. Like there's buddies from the game store that recommended it to me. And at first it kind of comes off as like a victim of its time and place too, like a little campy and a little bit like production value a little low. But I believe like the time travel in the 12 Monkeys was very cohesive.
Mm.
And it has like an episodic vibe to it, but you might want to give it a try. It's kind of got like maybe a more of a cult thing, like a Battlestar type vibe to it.
I do love that movie.
Yeah.
So like there's hope.
Might be like the best Bruce Willis performance.
Oh, wow. I feel like this is like the second week in a row you've dropped like best performance of somebody. I'm like, that's the best performance?
I don't know. He's really good. I mean, like everyone might go for Die Hard, but he's just kind of being himself in Die Hard,
Oh.
to be honest.
Oh, we were talking about it was on the Patreon. We were talking about not Fifth Element, Sixth Sense.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But then I said I think he's better in Unbreakable than Sixth Sense.
Oh, there we go. And we gotta we'll save it for the Bruce Willis episode. But I thought Picard season 2 was not great. That was a little bit of a fumble. So that would worry me, but season 3 was a lot of fun. If anybody's ever watched The Next Generation, it was a very much a love letter to The Next Generation. And I mean, you get the whole cast back together. And see, he's working with an adaptive property. I think he could potentially navigate it well.
Yeah, my hang up there, and I'll just say this, is the Netflix part of it.
Yeah.
Because of what happened to like The Witcher and their other fantasy stuff. Like the production could be there, but like the writing and the end state and the through lines, Netflix seems to not hold on to those as much.
Yeah.
There's potential because like I very much like Stranger Things, especially the first 3 seasons are great, you know. So the potential to have some of that like dynamic, a little bit more gritty is there, but I'm just not convinced that it would happen. However, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. I mean, well, we'll see if it gets off the ground. They're restarting it. We'll see what happens, but fingers crossed, maybe there's something to it.
Yeah.
Should we get to power rankings?
Yeah.
All right. So power rankings this week. Jesse, this is going to be all you.
Yeah.
We want to know about your top 3 cards and your top 3 expansions. And for fun, if you don't get to talk about your top 3 cards, hear about your top 3 artwork as well. So you get a chance to talk about that.
Oh, that's even easier because I can make the top 3 card part easy.
Okay.
Because like when I thought about this, I'm like, well, how do you balance like the reality of some of these cards are just so powerful, and then so I'm kind of like have 2 in there for the people that are like, well, it better be one of these, and then I had like 1 for me, 2 for them, 1 for me. So obviously, like we talk about Black Lotus. Is considered not only to be the most expensive card in Magic because of its rarity and it hasn't been reprinted, it's also just one of the most straight up powerful. If you talk about turn advantage and the fact that you just play this card down, you get 3 free mana, and the fact that it costs 0, so when you can like reoccur it in some cases and things like that, or just in a limited draft environment, if you're drafting like a powered cube, you have that card, and it's like, so on turn 1 you can play something worth 4 mana, which could just totally set the pace of the game that is so hard to like come back from.
Sure.
So that's what makes that card so powerful, is the fact that it's just like, it's free. It's like, here's 3 mana. And I believe it's 3 mana of any color. Nerds, don't get mad. So it's just like, it's very diverse. So number 2, like the next best card I would go is Ancestral Recall, which is another one of the old Power 9 cards. Cost 1 blue mana, 1 island, and you get to draw 3 cards. In comparison, since they've corrected that for like the power curve, like most of the time it's going to cost you 2 to 4 mana to draw 1 or 2 cards, or a couple mana and discard 1, draw 1 or something. So like it's very broken in the sense you're just once again kind of getting 3 cards into your hand, and when it comes to like turn advantage, card advantage, that's huge. And the third one I listed there was Liliana the Veil. The reason I listed her is she's one of the earlier planeswalkers when they came to be a card type. We talked about creatures and enchantments and stuff. So planeswalkers they're different because they're not a creature, they're not an enchantment, but they have like multiple abilities you can spend. Like say there's a planeswalker that has like 3 points of health. And for 1 point of health, you can do an ability. Liliana comes down. She's cost 2 black and 1 colorless, so just 3 mana. And right away you can eliminate someone's creature, and then later on you can have them be discarding cards, and you can discard your own cards. So she was early on just considered a very powerful planeswalker because a lot of planeswalkers cost more than 3 mana.
Yeah.
So she can come down and just kind of control the board. Now she might be a little outdated nowadays, but those are like my 3 just like powerful cards. Like I said, 2 for them, 1 for me. Liliana's for me.
You do it any way you want.
Yeah. The sets, as far as the blocks, which there's many, I start with Urza's block, which is back during like when I first started in like 96, 97, 98, all that stuff. Urza's block was the first set to ever do foils, which has like we talk about foils in Pokemon and foils in any card game. Like Urza started that. So like they had foil cards. So that alone is super cool. And at the time, the power level of Magic, it was like they printed that set and it just outpowered everything.
Yeah.
To the point, like for the next like 12, 15 years, they had to like correct their course because it's like, man, this is a powerful set, you know? So, and then not only that, besides the foils and the power set, it starts kind of this ongoing, one of the main storylines of Magic the Gathering is Urza and his brother Mirsha. And so there's this kind of they're kind of like frenemies for a while, and then they're at super at ends, and throughout their storyline, they end up like fighting each other essentially, brother versus brother type stuff, and it kind of all starts there. So that's like a pinnacle set for me. Was Urza's. The next one I want to get to is Ravnica, which is a block. They have like 3 or 4 different sets. That was the set that I got was out. Return to Ravnica was out when I got out of the Marine Corps. And Ravnica is like an entire city, like a plains of just the cities everywhere. There's some country out there. There's some bios and forests where all the critters are hanging out. But their whole thing is they have guild pairings. So like we talked about the colors. So you combine like 2 colors, and like, so now there are these guilds that exist that kind of do a certain thing. Like Orzhov is black and white together, and they're kind of like this oligarchical like hierarchy in the cities. So they like exploit you for life and money and stuff. And then you have like Gruul, which is red and green. So it's super nature, and they're like the anarchists. They want to bust down the walls of the city. So, and there's 10 different guilds, all that you compare all the color pairs. So it's just so ripe with like, oh man, these guilds are so cool, and I want to experiment with these different color pairings and what they do. And I was drafting it at the time, and so that set just hits hard. Sure. And Ravnica is no longer a plane. Little spoiler alert for the storyline. Like one of the big baddies, Nicola Bolas, like kind of like it essentially got destroyed. Wow. After like years and years. So rest in peace, Ravnica. But that set is awesome.
That sucked you back in.
Yeah, it sucked me back in, or just happened to be out when I was
sure.
there. But like because of the nature of the color pairings and the guilds and stuff like that, I just glommed on.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I was going to bring up War of the Spark, which by no means is considered by anyone to be like this powerful set. But once again, this set was all about planeswalkers. So it was the first set that came out where they're like, there's just like planeswalkers at all these different rarity levels, which didn't exist before. They were usually mythic or rare. Now you have like uncommon planeswalkers, and it was like draft season, and like it's like I'm just building all the deck full of planeswalkers, and it's just kind of this like fun. It was just so fun. Multiple color pairings again and things like that. So that's like the 3 sets to me. The like power rankings, yes, but also like just like what they mean to me.
Sure.
Yeah. And then a side note about War of the Spark is like that draft season got cut short by this set called Modern Horizons, which was like the beginning of the end for where we're at now, where MTG really started just like printing cards so fast and having all these sets that it like cut short the time that you were spending playing. So it kind of like, in a weird way, that pushed me away from Magic. So War of the Spark was like one of the last ones I played that was like when I was like in it. Yeah.
I think that's the spirit of power rankings, right? It's like, it should be what's important to you, not necessarily like what you think is important for the wider game. Because like, if Fred and I always pick the 3 best movies, it'd probably be the 3 same movies every time. But no, we got it. So glad you shared those with us. Yeah. I guess, is there any artwork you want to call out?
There's so like I love a lot of different artwork, and like this is like can be a conversation on its own. But what I will call out a time and place that the Magic nerds out there might like is during Strixhaven, there was this supplementary set that you could get in the packs, and it was done by all Japanese artists. And it was all full art like cards. Borderless. Now in America, when they say it's full art cards, there's still like a border on them. But these Japanese cards they were beautiful. You can like look them up. They like literally the art extends past the border of the card, so it's like having a little mini painting. I believe you just look up like Japanese demonic tutor, and you'll see like an example of like just how beautiful that artwork is in general. So I really like a lot of those like borderless, like true full art cards. And then instead of naming cards, I'll just name like my 2 favorite artists.
Just looking at this right now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So you're getting a look at. Yeah. See, that's beautiful to see how there is no border on the card, and it's just really cool when you have that in your hands, you know.
Yeah.
And then I have like 2 artists that I really like, and the first one's Omar Ryan, who some super highbrow people out there. He also does like oil paintings, and like he's an actual traditional painter who just happens to have done some Magic cards, and he uses juxtaposition so well. Like He's got a meme out there that people might not even know is Homer Ryan, but it's like this little like turn of the century, like almost like 17th century, like British girl with pigtails, like smiling, holding like this big ugly pig, you know, and he loves like doing that, like something beautiful with something gnarly and like combining that. And so, and when I've met him at conventions, he's just sitting there. He's got like, he walks around with no shoes. He's got like a tank top on and he's like, yeah, man, he's just like a dude, you know what I mean? Just like chill. So like I really like him and his artwork. And then someone who's really big these days is Seb McKinnon. And he just does beautiful, beautiful artwork. If you can look up Seb McKinnon's art sometime, it's just like that classic fantasy art with a modern twist. It's very clean, but very dark at the same time.
Cool.
And I guess the best thing to do is leave it at that because I could just go on for days about the artwork
Sure.
magic.
No, I think we have covered a lot here, Fred. Is there anything else you think we left unturned?
No, I think we did good.
Yeah. Well, I think that gets us then to the end of the episode. This was extremely informative, Jess. And no. I mean,
I feel I wanted to hear more from you guys. Like,
No, this and that comes with these kind of episodes, but we like doing these episodes every once in a while where we have someone where we don't know as much about it and we let someone come and cook and we just get to appreciate how much you're into it. And I think we both we sparked some interest as well.
yeah, I'm very, I mean, arena is something I'm kind of curious about poking around in now, just to like, dip a toe in the water.
it's a
And
good way to learn the game.
yeah.
And also a bad way to learn the game because then you don't physically have to like do the actions and phases yourself.
Yeah,
Some-
there's
so-
something about physical media, right?
Yeah.
But you should go buy like spend some money on when the Final Fantasy comes out and get like a commander deck. And there's people in the community that would maybe teach you a commander that way, and then you're doing it with like your Final Fantasy deck. You know, that's something to keep in mind.
I'd be curious. So, okay, what before we do let you go?
Okay.
So, what is a commander deck versus something else? Yeah.
It's very actually on point to bring that up because I believe this is how most people play Magic these days, and especially like my fellow like people within the improv community here in Milwaukee. Like the people that do play Magic, it's mostly like let's do Commander. It's a 100-card deck, and you can only have one copy of each card, so it doesn't get too expensive.
Okay,
if
yeah.
you don't want, but you can play. It's multiplayer instead of 1v1. You can have like 4 people. And you have more life, and it becomes not only do you add magic to it, but you can add like politics to the game. Then, like, I won't attack you if you keep me safe type stuff. Or you can just add whatever your play group is. If you're just a bunch of wonky dudes that just want to have fun, it's, you know what I mean? So, Commander is kind of like that's the gateway to Magic these days because you find your people, your play group, and just kind of play that way.
Okay. Well, that's good. And I think that's good advice for any listeners out there who want to know how to get in. It's a great advice for a first step. Because, yeah, I think that might be the next step here, jumping in. But before we let you go, Jesse, anything you would like to plug?
Oh God! Well, in keeping with tradition of a bazillion things, June's a big month. Fred, I might cut into your plugs a little bit here too. Let's see. 6/13, Off Leash, new improv troupe opening for 1-star review in the Comedy Sports Garage. 6/14, draft night over at the ye old Interchange Theater. Draft night is a Vince team that we just draft different things. It's going to be wedding themed this time. So we're drafting a wedding, doing some improv about it. 6/21, Palindrome. And I'm looking at my faithful leader.
Hey.
That's Fred is the captain of that team. And we're performing 6/21. And then Fred, another thing, 6/27 at the Interchange, Fractal, where we're teammates
Yes.
doing the Tina. And then my last plug, I'm sorry, it's got too much stuff going on.
Yeah,
Is
do
I'd be
it.
remiss if I didn't plug in August 14th through the 17th, Schmitz and Giggles is doing a run of All My Sons. I am in that cast. It is a stat cast. There's some awesome people I'm very much looking forward to working with. And that run's going to be at Next Act on August 14th through the 17th.
And I'll jump in on that just because in that cast are several past guests. I believe the director, Chris Good,
Correct.
has been on. Josh Randall has been on several times.
Correct.
Betsy Kashke is in there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anyone else, but I think those are the main ones who have been on the pod. And if I'm missing anyone who's listening, sorry. You could just say, well, we can cut
Has
it.
Tim ever been on the pod?
Tim Higgins?
Yes.
He has not, but
Oh.
we can leave it in and
Let's get
say, hey, Tim,
Open the door.
door's open.
The door is open for you, Tim. Yeah, so you can check out interchangetheater.com. Schmitz and Giggles, I know has, I can't think of the website name right now.
It's Schmitz and Giggles. You can Google it.
Yeah. And then how do they find I know you were mentioning a Comedy Sports in the Garage.
There's a lot going on, but that would be Instagram Kauth shows. Mike Kauth has like an Instagram handle
sure.
where he
Kauth.
promotes his like garage shows. So if you got Kauth shows, you got Interchange, you got Schmitz and Giggles, you got kind of like the Milwaukee trifecta there. You can find a lot of shows that way.
Perfect. All right. Well, yeah, make sure to check out Jesse. Very talented performance, and you performed before. You're very good. So glad we had you on. Fred, anything you would like to, also a very talented performer
Oh.
that you would like to plug?
I will plug 6/6, the day that this is dropping. If you're listening to this on the day, I'll be doing the blind date show at interchangetheater.com. I'll also be performing 6/13, but I'm gonna say go to Jesse's show because that's gonna be something fun.
If there you can't choose, you go to Fred's show. I'll say go to Fred's show.
Jesse's show. You're the guest this episode, so I'm gonna relinquish that plug date to you. But no, then the rest, like you said, I'll be at the Palindrome show cheering on my team. And then Fractal at the end of the month there.
A lot of improv coming up. A lot of just good performing art. Support your arts in the community here. Plenty of stuff going on around the city. But yeah, definitely get out, laugh a little bit. These guys are great. They're funny. As for me, I'm just going to plug the podcast for today. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to rate and review it. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube. Join our Patreon for just $1 a month. You can get an exclusive bonus episode. Fred, I believe coming up, we're doing our Taco Bell chicken nuggets episode.
Ding.
That's right. We're returning to talk more Bell. This is our third Taco Bell episode. we're getting like doughboys like here.
Yeah, that we might get the cease and
Desist.
see. I almost wanted to say assist, but that's no good.
But you never know. Maybe they
Yeah,
will ask us.
maybe
to assist.
they'll
Hey,
cease and
That's
wait
it.
till we get there.
You
because
guys can be the backup doughboys.
Yeah.
I think we could be a good Mitch and Wags, but
who's who?
I don't know.
It's your Wags and I'm Mitch. I have a feeling.
I kind of was gonna say that, but yeah. I don't think that's a bad comment.
I mean, look at the preparedness over here. Look at the preparedness over here. And like, also, I feel like the booking's similar. Like, oh, I just did a show with this person. We got to have him on.
Too damn true, man. But you're still the more talented one, so I'll give you that.
No, we share talent.
Get out of here. Special thanks to Nick Spitza and Mike Schwantz for our opening and closing theme songs. And stay tuned for next episode where, don't panic, it's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Oh, I thought you were going to have a comment.
Oh, I didn't have anything. Oh, I guess we're making our way through the Fractal team. We'll just say that as a spoiler.
There's
Or
a-
a tease.
It should be quite a ride. And we'll see y'all then.
Goodbye.
Got no cares, cause all I wanna do is charge my phone and drive